Hello, I'm here at a Pinhook Bog, which is one of my favorite trails. Anyway, I'm going to give a quick talk here. The Indiana Dunes is ranked number 4 in overall biodiversity. So that means the species, the plants, and animals are of the quantity of 4 compared to others in America. However, we only have 15,000 acres. And you may not know, but the 15,000 acres of the national park counts the 2,182 acres of the state park. The state park is totally surrounded by the national park. At a certain distance, the water that's by the beach of the state park is the national park. The Calumet Trail is the national park. Camel Beach is the national park. Porter Beach is the national park next over Coles Bog. Well, anyway, we have the greatest biodiversity density. So Lake Michigan really doesn't matter. There's other Great Lakes, lots of lakes. Beaches, we have 15 miles of beaches. There's plenty of beaches elsewhere. Sand dunes, there's sand all over the world, all over the United States. I saw it in many places. The Great Sand Dunes National Park in Colorado, Death Valley, where I drove something like 500 miles and saw about 10 cars, and there were signs all over: don't go beyond this point unless you have so many gallons of water per person and so much gasoline and all that. Anyway, so we have the greatest biodiversity density. There's many places that have biodiversity, but what matters is we have the density because it's all in 15,000 acres. Now people say, so what? So we have that. Why does that matter? We have different microbes. Microbes are microorganisms. You generally need a microscope with 1,000 magnification. I have one when I was 8 years old that has 750 magnification, and you can see some stuff, but 1,000 is better. So those organisms are all essential for something called our microbiome. Our microbiome goes from your mouth through your esophagus down to your lower intestine, is on all of your skin, because your skin is a sponge. It's not a baggie holding in your guts. But the hands, the palm of your hand is a special hot spot, as is under your arms. So that's why it's so important when you shake hands with someone from a diverse area, another area, then you will get more microbes. If you're shaking hands with all people who live in your neighborhood and don't go anywhere, then you're not going to get really more diversity. So there was a doctor, one of the greatest, who knows about microbiomes. He's board certified in 3 areas, which is not common. His name is Zach Bush. Well, anyway, he said he met with a Native American leader and he thought he's going to go there and teach this guy about nutrition and stuff. So he gave his spiel to the guy, and the guy said, it's not what you eat, it's who you eat it with. And what he meant by that was, when they had a group of people meeting. Let's say there were some from Minnesota, some from Indiana, some from Michigan, some from Illinois, some from Kentucky. All those people bring their biodiversity. You hug, you shake hands, you rub elbows, all of that. So you get biodiversity. So the Indiana Dunes, I had this couple from California, and the wife particularly, she was riding a bicycle and stopped at the nature center and was talking to me outside. And she said, oh, we were really disappointed when we saw the smokestacks to the west. And what I have to say is, this is a model of why biodiversity is so important in the human. If you look at the state and national park, it is thriving. You're not seeing plants dying because of pollution. The biodiversity here keeps it alive. If we were to foolishly remove some species of plants that then affected other species of plants, then impacted butterflies and other animals, you would see biodiversity nosedive and the health of the whole ecosystem to get worse. So this is showing be diverse and thrive. So as a human, you have to be diverse. So you'll say, oh, I buy the finest organic foods. So I was talking to an organic farmer, and I said, wow, you really do grow organic crops. He said, oh, yeah. And I said, they're certified by the standards now. He said, oh, yeah. I said, what's your neighbor do? Oh, yeah, I've been talking to my neighbor for years, but he just doesn't use, he uses pesticides like glyphosate and herbicides like glyphosate and others. And I said, so you have a 1,000-foot tarp that runs 8 miles along the border of your farm with his farm, right? And he said, no. And I said, well, then you're not an organic farm, because that stuff blows over. And if you go to the Heron Rookery Trail in April and May, you'll start to see wildflowers. If you start at the western side parking lot, which only allows 4 cars to park, if you go down that trail, you'll see all these great wildflowers. However, once you cross this one bridge and you're a quarter mile away from the eastern lot, which holds like 20 cars or something, you will see there are no flowers, virtually no flowers. It's like going from color to black and white. In The Wizard of Oz, it went from black and white to color. So if you say, well, why is that? So turn to the south, and there you would see a farm. That's the only explanation, because there was no industrial stuff there that has pollution. There's nothing special about that area. The only variant is there's a farm there that's close to it. So there is that same farm on that other roughly 1.5, 2 miles, but there's a big forest, sometimes a quarter of a mile or more. So we know that pesticides and herbicides harm things. So real quick, glyphosate was invented in 1950 by a Dr. Martin in Switzerland. And it's said that he said to never use it as a general herbicide. He said it's water soluble. What that means is, okay, we have this plant here, and it's got 3 leaves. Well, anyway, whatever it is, we say we want to remove it because we're too lazy to dig it up. So we spray that stuff, and it does its job. It kills the plants. So then what? It goes through the dirt, through the sand, down into the water table, to the creeks, to the rivers, to the lake. What was all this? Sorry about that, Walla. And then it evaporates. And when it evaporates, it rains down. I know for some reason, particularly in the West, so much of the crops have traces of the actual food has traces of glyphosate on it. There are now people making labels that say glyphosate free. So what does glyphosate do? It kills the good bacteria in your microbiome. And so then it makes you susceptible to other things like cancer or other illnesses. Now people say, well, surely the Environmental Protection Agency would make it illegal. Well, why are all these other countries banning it? Take, for example, there are families I know, and some of the members have gluten intolerance, and they went on a vacation to France. In fact, they went to Paris, and they were eating all kinds of foods that they couldn't eat here in America. So they came back and they told one of their doctors, hey, I'm able to eat all kinds of stuff that I couldn't eat here. And the doctor said, why'd you come back? Well, in France, they really minimize the use of glyphosate, and it's basically being phased out. There's other countries who have banned it. I saw something in one place, I haven't verified it yet, that Mexico was going to not use it. Anyway, so back in 1950, that Dr. Martin invented glyphosate, it is said that one of the uses was going to be to clean out sewers. So you have a house or a big building, and it's going out to another sewer, and it's all clogged up because roots and other things got in there. So you would use this glyphosate to kill that. So it was more contained. It was really still bad, but it was more contained and not used like it is today. So the company Johnson & Johnson bought the glyphosate. You could say the patent, the ownership, the exclusive marketing. Then Johnson & Johnson sold it to another company. At least one other company's been involved. And then Monsanto bought it. So Monsanto first told farmers, hey, you got all these weeds growing around your farm and they encroach on your farm. Let's kill those. Well, guess what most of those were? Milkweed. Milkweed, of course, is essential and required. It's not just essential, it's mandated for the monarch butterfly, for its female to lay its eggs, and for the caterpillar to develop, eat that plant, and then go and hang in the J and form a chrysalis, and then form a monarch. Anyway, so here's Monsanto. They're saying to the people, hey, to the farmers, go kill everything around your farm. So then they said, how could we increase the use of glyphosate? How could we increase our sales? So what they said is, we're going to have every adult in America who has a yard or a house in a yard, we're going to sell them Roundup. So during a Super Bowl in the 1970s, they had a commercial of a big strong guy with Roundup going out and killing all these plants. So now we have glyphosate in like 5, 7 out of 10 houses. Do you think people read those instructions? I saw people walking down the street. Here's their curb, here's their asphalt. They're spraying in there because they're too lazy to pick the weeds out. On their sidewalk, there's cracks. Instead of using hot water or other solutions to kill those plants, they use those chemicals. They're in their yards using those chemicals. So then let's go to 1996. 1996, Monsanto came out with genetically modified organisms, Gmo Seeds. And they told their farmers, good news, now you can spray glyphosate over all of your crop and it'll kill everything except our seeds. And we'll grow more, you'll have better yield. None of that has been proven to be true. By the way, we didn't use herbicides, pesticides before World War II. It was chemicals that were developed during World War II that people said, hey, what can we do with this technology that we have? What can we do with that technology? There is a company called Bayer. It wasn't called Bayer in World War II. Bayer made chemicals used by their German company, and they were chemicals used by the German army in various ways. And that's all I'll say about it. So, what happened a couple of years ago? Bayer bought Monsanto. And what Bayer's vision is, we will be number one in pharmaceuticals for humans, plants, and animals. That's really scary. So people say there was a master gardener, Indiana master gardener, and she said, well, it's legal in Indiana and I use it. I said, just because something is legal does not make it moral. And so that went real well. So anyway, they say, well, why doesn't the EPA stop it? How much money do you think Bayer and Monsanto set aside for lawsuits because of glyphosate? A, 500 million, B, 1 billion, C, 20 billion, or D, 50 billion? The answer is D, 50 billion. There were many articles that said that. So unless you really look at the books, you don't know if it was 20 billion or 50 billion. But whatever it was massive. Never, ever, not even the Ford Pinto and Ford, ever set aside that much. So anyway, the EPA used to not look fondly on glyphosate. And they cited 700 reports that say it's fine. So mind you, there's $50 billion set aside for these lawsuits. They're not attorneys just trying to make money. There's people who really got cancer because they worked on a regular basis with all of it. Okay, so this one man, he was from a Jeep club. He came with 20 Jeeps to Mount Baldy, and there was like 40 people, and I took him on a hike, and there was one person, he was in his 60s, and he said, okay, I understand your story about glyphosate and the microbiome. He said, how do you build it? And I said, well, try to eat the best foods. Don't dwell on these 4 superfoods, but dwell on diversity. My grandmother said, on your plate should be every color of vegetables. Anyway, so we're gonna say eat as best as you can. But so back in 1999, Monsanto also told farmers you can use glyphosate not on your wheat, but you can use it to dry it, to turn it over, get your money quicker. So, I never heard the word gluten intolerance before 1996. Never. And if you look at charts of cases for all kinds of illnesses, they all start to bloom around 1996. Attention deficit disorder is one of them. Also, I wanted to mention about glyphosate. It kills bees. So everyone's saying, why are we losing all these bees? Stop using herbicides and pesticides that are toxic. So back to the man who asked, how do you improve your microbiome? Eat as well, but go to a place with the greatest biodiversity density in your area and touch things, touch plants. Don't touch poison ivy, poison sumac, or poison oak, but touch plants. And by the way, some people are immune to those. But as you touch them, like right now, I just touched this. I go like that. I just got hundreds of thousands, if not more, microbes. There's a government organization called NIH.gov, which is the National Institute of Health. They are ultra conservative. You know, they make the Mayo Clinic look like a hippie. Well, and nothing wrong with hippies. But, so the National Institute of Health published a paper, and I jokingly told others that, yeah, these surfer dudes in Southern California hacked into their system and published their paper. And here's what the paper said was, hike barefoot because of something called grounding. And I'm pretty sure they didn't mention microbes. But I have to look at that report again. But anyway, when you're stepping, so you weigh 100, 200 pounds or so or more, you're pounding on top of dirt and you get microbes. So that's another way. The other one is breathing. When you see all this stuff, do you really think it's all just staying on its leaves? If you could see it's coming onto you, you're able to breathe it in. Now, also, there are peer-reviewed reports. If you go to scholar.google.com, that's where the peer-reviewed reports are. They show how many times they were referenced. So if there was a report written 3 months ago and it has 1,242 shares, that means it's really something to look at. If there's a report from 10 years ago and it has 4 shares, maybe it's not a good report, or maybe it wasn't marketed well. But anyway, so if you go to scholar.google.com and you type things like turkey tail mushroom, that's a key one in fighting cancer. Everything has a purpose. Well, another thing, when you're here in the forest, well, unfortunately, here at Pinhook Bog Upland Trail, you can hear the Indiana Toll Road. So I hate that about a trail. Sound really triggers me. And but anyway, that's why Trail 10 at the Indiana Dunes State Park is the most natural sound trail of the park. It's the quietest because it has the biggest buffer zone around it. So when you hear these sounds, birds chirping, winds blowing the trees, the plants, that is good for your microbiome. So I wouldn't be surprised also if vision, like if you're looking at pretty green plants and yellow flowers, and that might affect it. So you can do, to summarize, hike in areas that have the greatest biodiversity density. The Indiana Dunes National and State Park are number 1 in the country for that. Number 2, hike barefoot if you can, and you build tolerance. Sometimes, these sticks and things could be a pain. The third thing, eat good, listen well, and very importantly is do it frequently. Don't just do it on Saturday afternoons between 2 and 4. Instead of going to a gym where you're not getting any biodiversity other than the humans that are there, and you're getting stuff from the sweat they leave on the equipment and everything, or exhale. And people say, oh, yeah, I would do 4 laps in my neighborhood, and that's 2.8 miles. I do that every day, and it takes me 42 minutes. So guess what? You're getting to breathe the weed killers, the pesticides. You're getting to breathe the horrible pollution from 2-stroke weed whackers. Did you know a 2-stroke weed whacker is worse than a modern automobile in the amount of pollution? So you're getting to smell the Amazon trucks, the UPS trucks, the FedEx trucks. I don't know if DHL is still in business. And they're zipping all around. The postal truck, it seems to me they don't have a gas pedal. They have an on and off switch. Full throttle, no throttle. Full throttle, no throttle. Because all I see them doing is hot rod. And same with school buses, amazingly. Where I live, they are pedal to the metal after they take off. Anyway, a storm is coming. But I probably have talked, well, it looks 27 minutes. I had no idea it was going to take that long. So get out, go take a hike. Doesn't have to be with me. Send me questions at indianaduneshiking@gmail.com, or go to indianaduneshiking.com, which is going to be a gateway to all the social media I use. It's also going to be a gateway to Google Photos, where I have over 200,000 photos of the dunes in all weather, minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit to 105 degrees Fahrenheit, windy, rainy, you name it, every trail. The problem is Google Photos doesn't allow you to manage a massive amount like that. It doesn't even sort album names, which I have like 3,000 album names. So I'm searching for a certain album name, and it takes 20 minutes to page down to it. Anyway, so I could go on and on, but I'm gonna just leave you here. And if you come on a hike, I could tell you in more detail and answer any question in real time. So if you've listened this far, that is great. And I look forward to seeing you, look forward to answering your questions. And when I answer a question, I can point people to multiple sources for that answer. Have a great day. Take a hike.